Thanks for tuning in to this broadcast of the Resilient Advisor Podcast. My name is Jay Coulter, and joining me for this episode is my friend, Coach Joe Lukacs, who's the founder of the Magellan Mastermind and Network. Joe, thanks for coming on this podcast.
Jay, it's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to really doing a deep dive with you on a lot of different subjects that I think your audience is going to find very, very fascinating, interesting, and powerful.
Yeah, so Joe and I had the opportunity to connect for the first time about a week ago, and it was very interesting speaking with someone who's been in the business for 25 years and has a completely unique lens on how to help advisors than I do based on my experience. He has a great analogy that I'm going to let him share about the differences of my approach versus Joe's approach. But after the conversation, I was just so excited, not only about the podcast, but about Joe's approach to working with advisors. So I'm glad we're able to get you on. The context of this show is how advisors can build a better mindset for their business. Joe, you want to start with the construct that you and I talked about, the car and the driver and the different approaches to working as a financial advisor?
Yeah, it was a great conversation last Friday also from my end, Jay. So in our conversation, we talked about there's multiple pieces that an advisor needs to be super successful, and I'll let the advisor determine what that means to them. But a lot of times, I use the racing analogy in NASCAR F1. There are really two elements to a championship team. The first element is going to be, the vehicle. It has to be dialed in properly, tuned properly, ready to go for that racetrack, that specific racetrack. And you need your pit crew, which are your support team, right? Your staff around you to really kind of help with the vehicle. And that's where a lot of advisors spend their time and focus because it's an external conversation. I need to get this fixed, that fixed, my marketing, my team, my technology. It's a very safe conversation individually. Taking that analogy, now we talk about the driver. See, I can have a great vehicle, a great team. If my driver sucks or is dysfunctional, I'm not going to win any races, and probably I'm going to crash the car. Most advisors don't spend time looking at themselves as the driver of their vehicle. And to me, being an advisor is a vehicle for success. Just like any other entrepreneur, doctor, any other profession, you chose this field, this vehicle, to get you to point A to point B by also adding value to the other human beings around you, clients, peer group, things like that. So if the advisor is not viewing themselves as a driver and saying, how do I become better? And like to our conversation on Friday, your job is, your coaching work primarily is around the vehicle, right? You're making it better, investment management decisions, processes, protocol, productivity, pieces like that. I focus on the driver. And the driver is, all about mindset. Everybody's practice is a reflection of their psychology, their self-image, their belief, their internal dialogue. And quite frankly, if they're running a rock star practice, chances are they would have been successful in any endeavor they chose. They just happened to choose this vehicle, right? So if we can look at both, that's why you and I had a great conversation. You have to look at both. So you can spend time on the car, doing all that, putting a lot of money, energy, effort, focus in that. But if you're not looking in the mirror, saying, okay, how do I become a better driver, a better leader? If I'm not doing that, I'm not maximizing my potential.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it was so eye-opening to me, Joe, because I go into every engagement with an advisor or a firm, and I just focus on the car. What's broken, what needs to be fixed, what system needs to be put in place. Mm-hmm. And gosh, the 2.5 decades of experience that you have starting with the driver, I just found fascinating. Tell me, let's start high level. What is mindset? And then how do you start the engagement with them?
That's great. So, it's interesting. Mindset, you got to have the right mindset. You've got to, and I literally about 7 or 8 years ago, I was with my mastermind group, my personal mastermind group, and I'm sitting going, what is mindset? And we really had a group conversation around it. And initially, my definition up until about 7, your beliefs, your values, your rules. So 3 things. And a lot of that I got from my time working with the Tony Robbins organization back in the very, very early 90s. So beliefs, I am, right? I deserve success or I don't deserve success. I think I'm capable of something or not. I'm uncomfortable working with high net worth individuals. Well, guess what? You're not going to go work with high net worth individuals because you just psyched yourself out. So what you believe is incredibly important. Do you believe that you deserve success? Do you believe that you add value? There are a lot of advisors that believe they're lucky. They're lucky to be in this business, and that's a problem. They're abdicating responsibility. So beliefs are really important. Then the values. What's important to you? Most advisors got into this business because they wanted freedom. I don't want to have a boss. I want to be able to come and go as I please, things like that. But they build a model that actually creates a job for them. And lo and behold, they wake up one day and they go, I've got no freedom. Or they can have it, but they don't give themselves permission to go get it because they know they've underachieved. So now they punish themselves by not taking their vacations, by coming in on Saturdays. And I've always said that I've never seen a group or organization that's ever given a plaque for the most amount of hours in an office in any one given year. They don't take you up on stage on that, right? This is a productivity production business. So values and rules, right? And for decades, that's all I had. So that was mindset. And 7, 8 years ago, I started to really do a lot of research into what is the psychology of mindset. And then you start looking at more therapeutic things. And I'm not a therapist. I don't ever plan to be. But you start looking at other elements, right? Self-image, right? The man or woman in the mirror. If you look in the mirror in the morning and you don't like what you see, I'm telling you right now, you're not going to be at your best. You're going to sit there and sabotage your success. If you don't feel you look successful or anything like that, it's going to be a big challenge, a big problem, right? So we have the self-image game, right? And then we have the internal dialogue, the self-talk. The man or woman on the shoulders here. You deserve this. No, you're not. You're a fraud. You're lucky to be here. And you have this internals on. The challenging thing is very few, forget advisors, ever sat down and said, wait a second, what do I believe, and write it down. What is important to me? Write it down. Write it down. What do I see when I look in the mirror? Right? And I've done exercises, like group exercises. The first time we deployed this was in Toronto about 4 years ago, and I literally bought camping mirrors, and we had like 30 or 40 camping mirrors, and we were in this group, and I gave everybody a mirror. I said, look in the mirror and write down the truth, not the BS, the truth. And guys in that room, guys and gals, visibly getting emotional. Their hands were shaking their truth down because this is the first asking that question in a very third. So we go through that, right? And then in the morning, oh my God, I can't believe I go to work today. No wonder you think you have it go to work, right? All these little nuances. And the interesting part of it's not like anyone, when we turn 18 years old and say, gee, what should my values be? I wonder what my dog, there's just, we just accumulate these things from our upbringing, our environment, our experiences, right? Just thrown together. And my belief is, and I've got clients who've done this, I say, look, this has been a haphazard approach and you're making $250,000 a year. Pretty good, right? Consider how dysfunctional you are as a person, right? So I said, what would happen if we got this organized and you did this intentionally? You wrote it out, then every morning you repped it as part of your Magellan Morning 8, our morning ritual protocol. You rep it out, right? Because how did it end up there in the first place? It was in your head and you kept repeating it over. It's just a number of times thing, right? So that's the first thing we do. We get, so this is where the honesty. And when we do our 3-day business planning conference, day one is mindset. We take the man or woman apart. We have them pull the pieces out they have and say, does this serve me? And then we have them put it back together again, recompose it. And then they rep it. We call it MyOS 1, MyOS, like operating system, right? MyOS 1 before, MyOS 2, MyOS 2. We think of it like an operating system, like a computer does. And when you can take control of this and do it, very consciously, then all things become possible. That's when the driver can get really locked in and go win that race.
Joe, that there's a lot to unpack there. I'd really like to hear
Yeah,
more
no,
about this. I'd like to hear more about this morning protocol that you encourage advisors. It doesn't even really just apply to advisors, that you encourage people to go through.
no.
What does it look like at a high level, and how do they execute on it?
Right. So we call it our Magellan Morning Aids, an 8-step protocol process. About maybe 15, 20 years ago, that's a long time now. I did a thing for Horse's Mouth called, morning ritual, how to win the day or how to master the day. And I looked at how world class. This is before all the. Now everybody talks about morning ritual, now. But 15 years ago, nobody was talking about this, right? So now it's here. And so when I look back, 15, 20 years ago, I said, okay, metaphorically, I've always felt being an advisor is like being a world-class athlete. There's so many similarities on mindset, from you got to be driven, you're going to do the extra work. I mean, there's like 18 or 19 different things. But one of the things you look at world-class athletes is they all have a pregame ritual. Basketball players, football players, golfers, it doesn't matter. Any world class athlete, right? And so I
Mhm.
said, well, if that works for them in their sport, right, then why don't we bring elements of that here, right? And so we started to develop a protocol. We just call it an MSR, morning success ritual, which had a few things like review your business plan, meditate, visualize, have a conversation with yourself. To now, we've got a real solid 8-step protocol from we do visualizations, tactical and strategic. We do power statements, questions, declarations. We do meditate, right? We do one act of gratitude. We go ahead and review our business plan or our quarterly or monthly game plan, whatever kind of plan we're working on, right? We're going to exercise for 5 minutes, right? And look, nobody's going to get healthy with 5 minutes of exercise. It could just be a stretch. We want to get the blood flowing, right? Doing things like that. So these are elements in a protocol. And what happens is, it's 20 to 30 minutes long. We're not on CNBC. We're not looking at Fox Biz. We're not in our email. We're going to take the first 30 to 45 minutes of every day, and we play the game on the weekends too. So we play every day, so 24/7, 365. And what we find is if a client with a consistent morning ritual that's empowering, right? Then their day will be solid. There'll be consistency throughout. Because what I have found in my work is anybody can have a run of a couple of days, maybe even a couple of weeks. They get inspired. January is a great example. Everybody comes out rocking and rolling, right? New year, it's gonna be my best year. Mid-February, guess what? It's gone. Now we're into the grind. And if you don't have process and the system in place, you're going to revert back to the mean, to the norm. And that's what a lot of advisors do. They kind of have a little spurt for a while. They see a little progress, and we got to remember this. What I always tell my clients and my network is have an uncomfortable day. So many advisors' goal is to be comfortable, and that's a problem because when you're comfortable, you stop growing. Growth is the sucky part. It's the pain part. It's the uncomfortable part. Right now, we're very well compensated for that. But my goal is to get everybody, all my clients, to look, dude, if you're comfortable, we need to change your goals. This is not where we want to be, right? So
Mhm.
it's really about playing that mental game with the person, getting them to always be uncomfortable moving things. But that morning ritual is ask somebody how we doing in the mornings. If they're locked in, I know their days are happening, they're executing, they're functional, they're moving forward. How's your morning? Oh, I've been sleeping in a little bit, da 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 da. I know their days are not going nearly as good. And I don't care what you do. If you can be it doesn't matter, any human being. You
Mhm.
control that first 45 minutes of the day, you're going to have a better day.
Yeah.
Just are, period.
Yeah. And there's science behind that. Joe, we didn't talk about this in our pre-call. So I wrote the book, The Resilient Advisor, and that's where I got the
Yep.
brand for this. And in there,
Yep.
I lay out what I call the protocol system, which is a way
Mm-hmm.
to, and this is completely, not completely, it's a lot different than what you talk about. It's just a simple daily routine to help manage
Mm-hmm.
stress. It's designed for people who are struggling with extreme stress because there's a lot of it in this industry. And I got
Yep.
that term and framework actually from a woman named Shamiqua Holdsclaw,
Interesting.
who was a WNBA basketball player, the number one pick in
Mm-hmm.
1998. She played on Olympic teams. She actually
Mm-hmm.
ended up having a mental health breakdown and then went out and
Wow.
became one of the world's biggest advocates for mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I had her on the podcast, and she was talking. This was a mental health podcast I did years ago. And she said, Jay, I can't make it through the day if I don't do what I'm about to tell you. I call it my daily protocol.
Hmm.
And she went through what hers
Yeah.
was. And so I can see
Hmm.
the benefits. You take it to a whole new level. This isn't just about managing a little bit of stress. This is about visioning a bigger future. It's about envisioning where you want yourself to be and getting your confidence up. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think the word stress is interesting because, how we remember internal dialogue. We just talked about the ID dialogue, right? So if I've got a client who's running around, oh man, I'm just so stressed. I got all this stuff going, I'm so stressed. You create, you're putting gasoline on that emotional fire. And what I have found a lot of times, it's not really stress, it's the uncomfortableness of growth. Oh, I'm just uncomfortable. And you take that word stress and turn it into the term uncomfortable consciously, it takes a lot of that feel out of it, right? Going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And remember something. Scarcity is stressful, so is abundance, right? One just with a bigger bank account. I like the bigger bank account, so I'll deal with that stress. Thank you very much, right? But Jay, it's so true, man. Think about the psychology here. You got somebody go on a little run, right? They go bring in some money, their production goes up, they're feeling good, but then they stop. And a lot of times they regress back down to their mean,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's almost like a guy, it's like this. Like there's no breakout. And so you're desperate. Okay, I gotta get my act together, right? Now I'm gonna ramp it up. Oh man, do I really deserve to be successful? I don't know. I'm really uncomfortable. Oh, let's just get going. And what they don't realize is there's no such thing. You're not playing and staying on. You're either getting better, or you're getting worse. There's no middle here, right? And so
Yeah.
I've got clients that don't need money. I mean, they're well off. They live below their means. So we always have to find drive, right? And I've had several clients create foundations. They give money away. One I will give away about $250,000 every year now, and fund just his passions, right? And but you got to have something, right? And sometimes it's got to be more than you. A lot of times, I deal with a lot of very spiritual people, and they don't want a lot of money. Like a conflict. That's fine. Give it away if you want, but let's go make it. Let's go have that resource, right? And because
Mm-hmm.
now let's go that you can get. Because if you're not getting up and excited and inspired about what you're doing, about your game, then you need to change your game. It's not working for you anymore. You're in a rut.
Mm. Well, Joe, listen, I try and keep my broadcast under 20 minutes. We've had a little bit of latency issues on here, and I still have 8 more questions for you. I'd love it if you'd come back on sometime. Maybe we have a better signal and we can get it to the rest of these questions, because this is absolute gold. I really do appreciate you coming on. But before we get off, would you tell us a little bit about how viewers can find out more information about the Magellan Network and Masterminds?
Yeah, so 3 years ago, I woke up one day and I said, "How do I scale? How do I reach more? How do I reach more advisors? How do I do it in an economically feasible way? Because there's only one of me. I'm not going to build out a coaching company with sub coaches. I've been there twice, didn't like it either time. So what I've created now is a real powerful online game. We play every day. We play, and it's right here. It's always on your mobile device. So it's not like you have to go play email. And what I encourage all your advisors, listeners to do, people watching, just go to MagellanNetwork.net. There's a lot of information on that page, and then there's an application. So you put on an application, and for 30 days, you and I will play together inside of the game called Magellan Network, and then you can decide whether or not if this makes sense for you, if you're a good fit for us. I don't believe I'm the right coach for everyone. Quite frankly, I have a very unique style and doesn't go over real well with some people because they don't like the truth, understandably. But you know what? There's no harm to find out. So that's what I encourage everybody to do. Just put an application into MagellanNetwork.net, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions, quite frankly. Excellent. Inside of there.
MagellanNetwork.net. Joe, I apologize about the latency issues. I hope you can come back on for another broadcast and we can get to the rest of my questions here. Thank you so much.